In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how much I spend in a month. I'm going to break it down from personal expenses to business expenses. Now, this video, even as I'm making it right now, is a little outdated as I recently just separated from my employer, aka I quit my job. I'll share what my expenses were and typically are as I worked last month as a software project manager, and now how I'm going to reallocate those funds as I'm pursuing content creation full-time without a job. I'll share my hot takes on how I choose to manage my money and why the way that I manage my money is important. But first, go ahead and shake hands with that like button. We're cordial around here. The reason I'm creating this video is because I've been posting on Instagram for the past few months about the importance of personal finances. And then on the podcast, for the past year and a half, we've been talking about money and investing and why managing your personal finances well is important. So I'm making this in hopes of creating a honest and transparent conversation about money. Let's get started on my personal finances. I budget down to zero, which means every dollar that comes in, it has a specific job to do something. It's allocated to a specific category in my budget. So whether that be for food or gas or investing, each dollar has a specific purpose within the budget. This is significant to me because I think it's important to be intentional about the resources we have and to use them as best we can. Transportation expenses. I got two cars, one of which is a 2002 Honda Accord, and the car insurance for that is about $40 a month. I just turned 25, so I imagine if I gave him a call and was like, hey,
I'm 25.
I may even be able to get a better rate than that. I don't get this question as often anymore, but I used to occasionally get the question of, why don't you just buy a new car? Considering mine is almost 20 years old now. My answer to that is pretty simple. I like the car. It's very me, and it does exactly what I need it to do. It gets me from point A to point B, and that's all I can really ask for as a mode of transportation. And then when I get into the car, I try to remind myself how lucky I am to have a car, to have this thing that takes me from A to B. And on top of that, it does that well. So that's why. My second vehicle, and if you're subscribed or you've just snooped around on the channel a little bit, you'll know that it's a 1986 Chevy Suburban. I love it. I lived in it for about 3 years, and at this point, it's almost symbolic of faith for me. When I first moved into the burb, I had a dream to become debt-free, and I've never relied on God more than during that time, and God provided for me. So every time I look at the burb, I'm like, this reminds me that it's important to have faith. At this point, the burb is too sentimental for me still to think about giving her up. And the insurance on that bad boy runs about $70 a month. However, the burb now is primarily used for personal branding and almost 100% of the time used for business. So many of the expenses that occurs with the burb is a tax write-off. From there, I believe it's important to tally in the total cost for what it takes to maintain these cars. Last year, I spent $611 on repairs and miscellaneous car-related expenses, which is high. I had to replace ignition coils, had to replace spark plugs, had to do oil changes, had to smog both of these vehicles, and register and a bunch of other miscellaneous expenses for both of them. So let's call it another $50 a month on car utilities. I don't view these repairs entirely as a sunk cost because I do all the repairs myself. So even though it's an inconvenience, I get to learn new things while I'm in the process of fixing them, and I kind of like that part of it. Gas, baby, gas. In the same lane as cars, let's talk about gas and how much I spend on gas. Since I started working from home, I don't go out all that often, and I think many of you can also relate to that, hopefully. I don't know. Maybe you're more social than I am, but I don't go out all that often since I work from home. Last year, I spent between $60 and $120 each month, and that varied based on whether I took any trips out of town. To be safe, let's call it $100. However, some of these miles are tax deductible. Later in this video, when I cover business expenses, I'll talk about an app that helps me track which miles are tax deductible. So roughly about $100 a month is spent toward gas, but I'm typically getting 53 cents back per mile on those business trips. So at the end of the year, after tax deductions and whatnot, I'm usually getting about half of my gas expenses back. Phone and subscriptions. I got a phone bill. I use the phone. I be calling people. But my phone bill is about $32 a month, and some of the time it's used for business. So some of that also gets tax deducted. But at the end of the day, I get $32 out of my pocket each month to cover my phone bill. I pay $10 a month for a gym membership, and $10 a month is exactly what I'm paying for. I went yesterday to the gym. Some group of guys brought their own speaker into the gym to play music while the gym is playing music so they can play their music over the gym music and just blast it. So yeah, $10 is an accurate price point, and that's exactly what I'm paying for my gym membership. Something else I'm paying $10 for is Spotify. That's another subscription I use, and that to me is worth it. Entertainment, my entertainment expenses. I spend about $250 each month on entertainment related things. This is going out to eat with friends. This is taking a trip out of town. It's traveling. This is a McDonald's iced coffee that comes out to $1.07 with the app. This is not sponsored whatsoever. However, good iced coffee for $1. That goes into my entertainment category. And on top of that, when I eat out with people that I'm talking business with, some of that is tax deductible as well. If you're eating out and talking business, deduct that. Groceries. Now this expense is fairly consistent. It's about $180 a month. I try to shoot for $150, but I like doing taco nights once or twice a month. Special taco nights can't go wrong, and that usually adds another $30 to it. So it's typically about $180 because can't miss taco night. Giving. Money is weird in this way. The majority of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. This is according to CNBC. They say about 63% of Americans live in paycheck to paycheck to no fault of their own. Might I add, the education system doesn't really place an emphasis on personal finances. However, there's a weird stigma that people who budget are stingy or cheap, which I think is completely backwards. Giving is not something that is done without intentionality. So to ensure that I give, I created a category in my budget called Blessing Others. I spend about $100 each month on blessing others, and that pretty much just means if I want to buy somebody's meal when we go out to eat, that's a blessing others. If I want to donate money or donate to a cause or charity, this is money that's dedicated for that. Money that is strictly used for blessing other people, So if an opportunity comes up to give, I don't have to think about, can I or should I? It's like I can give freely up to $100. Boom. I'm happy to do it. Tithe. I also tithe, and I mix my tithe. I tithe to a church, and then I also tithe to a missionary family. And this comes out to about $355 a month. Now, giving to a non-profit organization also has its benefits. On top of it being a good thing, giving to a good cause. It's also a tax deduction, so it pays. It's good to give. As a person and for your taxes. Rent. This one is juicy. According to Investopedia, I live in the 8th most expensive city in America, in the United States. It's San Diego, California, baby. This I can say is worth it. It's got great people. It's got great weather. Papa John's. For a 1-bed, 1-bath, I'm paying about $1,200 a month. This includes utilities and internet. It's all part of the deal, and by goodness, it is the fastest internet I've ever had in my life. It's 100% worth it. For reference, according to Zumper.com, which I'm assuming is a credible source, it seems like it was, 1-bedroom, 1-bath in San Diego, the average rent is $1,975 a month, not including utilities. So I think I got a steal of a deal here. There's studios in San Diego that are upward of $1,800 to $2,000. My justification for paying for this instead of purchasing a real estate property that I could house hack in first was I just lived in a car for 3 years. I needed a place to stay. I needed a place to work. And finding a solid deal in San Diego during this market is kind of scarce. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to do. The numbers just don't work, eh? However, the long-term goal would be to find a multi-family unit in the Midwest that would be able to cover my rent here in California. Also, I'm self-employed and I work from home, so part of this rent cost is also tax deductible. Grand total, the moment you've all been waiting for, this very moment, not including tax deductions, my total expenses for a month is about $2,397. But conservatively speaking, it's probably closer to $1,600 at the end of the year after I include all the tax deductions and such, but I'm ballparking. Then outside of that, outside of expenses, I dedicate $1,200 to index fund investing each month. I never even see this money. It gets automatically invested as soon as I get paid straight into the index funds. If you want to learn more about index fund investing, subscribe to this channel because I'm going to be pumping out some more content on how you can get started in index fund investing as well. Also non-expense related before I separated from my employer is I used to put money into a TSP, a thrift savings plan, through my work. Put about $280 a month into it. This is also money I never saw. It was taken out of my paycheck before I even got it. And then they matched $175 as well, which is pretty good. Woo! All right, that's it. That's enough on the personal side, the personal spending side. Let's move on to the business expenses, how much I spend on the business each month. My business expenses including the podcast, acting, YouTube, content creation in general, making online courses, all of that jazz. My recurring expenses are fairly minimal. To start, for the podcast, I pay $15 a month as subscription to Calendly. I feel like I've said it a million times on this channel. I'm not even getting paid for it. I could send a link to a podcast guest, and it has my availability. They choose out of what they're available for, and there's no back and forth. They just they just schedule something right then and there. And that's worth every penny. The website, NickolasNatali.com, I pay $163 a year to pay for a hosting just to keep it live. That's through SiteGround. This is a little bit expensive because it's on a shared plan, in my opinion. However, it's the best website hosting provider that I've used so far. There are also expenses for NickolasNatali.com/shop where the merch lives. However, there's always a profit anytime something is ordered. So when I pay for materials and I pay for shipping, there's always a little profit on the top. So I don't really count that as a true expense because it's never going to put me in the negative. Tax help, I do pay for an app. It's a yearly cost of $60. It's called Mile IQ. This is what I was talking about earlier. It tracks your phone in the background. I know it's very scary, and I too am not super stoked on that, but it tracks every time you're in your car. So wherever you're driving, you can mark it as a personal trip or a business trip, and then from there, they'll put it in a format that you can just upload into your taxes at the end of the year. And it makes life very easy because you get the maximum amount of return you can on all of your transportation expenses at the end of the year. The course, I recently started paying for Kajabi, which is a online course hosting platform, because I created a course that covers A through Z personal finances, helps you get out of debt and manage your money and all of that great stuff. This is probably the most expensive recurring payment that I make. It's $150 a month. However, it's worth it. It's hosting the course, and it's also used as an all-in-one marketing platform. So instead of having a bunch of different email marketing tools being integrated into it, it's just all right there. And that, I find the convenience worth it. Miscellaneous. That being said, there are a handful of other things that I invest into for the business, being acting classes, headshots, casting call websites, outsourcing editing, video or podcast equipment, or even investing in myself by purchasing courses and books that help me learn about a topic. None of which are usually long-term reoccurring expenses. Sometimes they are, but it depends on what's going on. And I usually only invest in these if I think it's going to push me closer to my goal, enhance whatever I'm making, or help me make money at the end of the day. 2 things you can't go wrong investing in, and that's yourself and index funds. But hopefully one day I'll be able to have real estate on that list as well. Since I recently quit my job to go full-time into content creation, I'll be living off of my emergency fund for 3 to 6 months. Most of the expenses that I mentioned in personal finances will probably still apply. The only thing that'll really change is I won't be investing in index funds during this time. I'll be trying to put as much as I can into the podcast and the YouTube channel. And then also on the entertainment side of things, that's going to be cut down to a minimum so I can make this money stretch as far as it can, so I can make as much content as I can. At the end of the day, it's about covering necessities and hopefully providing enough value and service to as many people as I can. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like this video, and be sure to comment and tell me if this is a topic you're interested in. I'm happy to discuss more about money with you. If you want to get notified every time I drop a fat banger, hit the notification bell so we can stay in touch. Subscribe, and adios, muchachos. Goodbye. All right.